Hi, I'm Mel,
And I'm Janelle.
and this is the Murder Mamas.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. 2 weeks in a row.
Ooh,
Woo,
we
woo,
did
woo, woo, woo.
it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about A Deadly American Marriage, and this was on Netflix.
This was a
This is a crazy story.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive right in.
Let's go.
So we start out with them after the guy died, the dad died, and like they're doing interviews and stuff, and then we go back to where like all this stuff happened. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, what?
That's what I have down here.
So the opening, is that your actual note?
No.
Oh.
It's just, that's what I remember.
I was going to laugh at you so bad.
No.
So the opening scene is like a 911 call.
Oh, yeah. I didn't write down 911 call.
So you listen to a snip of a 911 call, and then you're hearing about the events of that led up to that call.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we immediately enter into hearing about the hearing from the police on who the victim is.
Yes. And the victim is the dad, and his name is Jason. And we find out that the grandparents of Molly, who is the mom, were staying in the basement. I say mom, they're not her biological children. They're Jason's biological children, but they called her mom.
Correct.
So I'm just going to say the mom. So the grandparents were staying in the basement. I'm assuming because they were like on a family trip, or do they live there?
They were visiting.
Yeah, they were visiting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we meet Sarah, who is the daughter,
She was 8 at the time.
and Jack, who was 10?
10.
10, yeah. And so Tom calls 911, and he admits...
Who's Tom?
Tom is the grandpa,
Molly's dad.
Molly's dad. He calls 911 and admits he hit his son with a baseball bat on the head. And we find this out later, but Tom is an ex-FBI agent. So this kind of plays into it. Like, the police were like, he tries to own the interview, tries to make it go his way, and the cops know that.
Yeah.
So, and they know he's an ex-FBI agent, and part of his term was doing criminal work. So, like, he knows what he's saying and, like, why he's saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he said, we find out like in North Carolina, they have a right to defend themselves, which I don't think happens in every state. So this is, when you look at it, like Texas, you have a right to shoot someone if they're on your property. Mm-hmm. You have to announce it and like give them the opportunity to leave.
Which is very interesting because like if you shoot someone like dead.
Yeah.
Who are they going to tell whether or not you said, I have a gun, and if you don't leave, I'll shoot you.
Right. But I know in like California, you shoot someone, then you get in trouble, even if they're breaking in. Like they take you into custody because you're the one that shot the guy. I think unless they're shooting back at you, it's self-defense. But if you just shoot him because he's robbing you with no weapon, you get fucked.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time looking into...
No, I read an article about a guy who was robbing this person, and they went out and shot him. He didn't die, and then he ended up suing the people who shot him.
I think I've heard that too. Like, someone's like fallen down the stairs and hurt themselves in the middle of a robbery, and then sued the homeowner.
Yeah.
And that's like...
What is that?
Wild behavior.
That is wild behavior.
The audacity. The audacity.
Yep.
So anyways, you learn that North Carolina has that law that you have the right to protect yourself from, it's like self-defense.
Yeah, it is.
But then they sort of, from my understanding, was the police are like, this guy is really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, he's been...
Jason, the dad.
Jason, yeah. Like, Jason has been brutally
Brutally.
attacked.
the blood spatter on the wall indicated he was already down. And so, like, why are you still hitting him in the head with a cinder block if he's already down?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then they also were like, there's not a lot of defensive wounds
Right.
on Tom
Yeah.
and Molly.
Right.
So, like, why?
Where's there so much blood and beating going on?
Correct.
Yeah.
But then there's zero, like, wounds on you,
Right.
or like injuries at all.
The one thing I thought was weird was they didn't test the pajamas that she was wearing, the mom. Wouldn't there have been blood all over her pajamas? They didn't mention that she washed them or anything. That was weird to me. Like, if she was beating her husband and her dad was beating the husband, there would be blood all over her. There'd be blood spatter. And there was none on her pajamas that she was wearing.
Oh, maybe she changed.
I don't know. But we find out later about the peeing in the pajamas.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah, maybe they, like, had her change.
Maybe.
And, like, took her clothes into evidence or something.
Right. But there was no blood on them. I found that weird. They didn't mention that they tried, like, I don't know.
Maybe they just didn't mention it, because why would it, like, it would, of course there would be blood on them.
Yeah, I guess.
Like,
But they
weren't
showed a
trying to-
picture of them.
Yeah, but they showed a picture of, like, the inside of them.
Yeah, okay.
It was like they were, like, folded,
Right.
like, rolled down.
Yeah, okay. And then we go on to meet Jason's sister, Tracy.
Yeah, so then they introduced, like, Jason's family. And
Yeah.
Jason's family is from
Ireland.
Ireland. Mm-hmm. I was going to say Scotland. But I don't want to offend anyone.
No. And their accents were actually, like, I find that when Irish people speak, sometimes I have a hard time understanding them. They were great. It's like, this is amazing. I can understand them. I don't need subtitles. The first thing that went through my head is, you speak really good.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So we meet them, and then we hear a little bit about Jason.
Yeah.
And so Jason's family describes Jason as always warm, very charismatic,
Loves his children.
a total family man, like, lives for his kids, a great dad, a great partner, just like a great, great guy.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like everyone describes the
Right.
people they love that way.
Yeah.
But I don't know, even like looking at the pictures they were showing of him and all these different points throughout his life, I was like, you can tell, like, he's just a person who, like, radiates
Yeah.
that energy.
Yeah. And we also find out his first wife died.
What his sister said when his sister was like, growing up, I never thought Jason would be like a romantic.
Yeah.
But then he met his first wife, Megs, and, like,
Yeah.
you could just,
So,
like, he had never, ever expressed any sort of, like, romance. And with her was, like, she was the whole world
yeah.
to him.
Yeah.
And they talk a little bit about, like, that relationship. And then you find out that she passed away
Yeah.
tragically
Yeah.
from, like, an asthma attack.
Which I find a little weird. Can you die from that? She had her inhaler. They mentioned that.
Yeah, you can.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does kill people.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like it
Yeah.
restricts your airflow.
Yeah.
So we find out that she passes away from an asthma attack.
Yeah.
And then that Jason is left alone to, like, raise these two very young kids at
Very
that
young.
time.
Yeah.
I think, like, 1 and 3 or something,
3,
or like
18
2 and
months.
4,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
very, very young.
Yeah.
And the sisters, like, we really tried to rally around him, but, like, there's only so much support you can give.
Yeah.
And he just lost his light.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
He lost his partner.
For sure. So he puts an ad in.
Yeah, so he puts an ad to find, like, an au pair.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know what an au pair is, it's a nanny
Nanny.
on the run
Yeah.
from a different country.
Right.
And then we meet Molly.
Yes.
And so Molly comes on to the screen and starts talking. And she's talking about how she had just gotten out of a relationship and she wanted to like do something new and for herself. And so she signed up to be an au pair. And through this website, she meets Jason.
Yeah.
And she decides to go be his au pair.
Yeah.
So she moves over to Ireland
Yeah.
to become the au pair. And I remember her dad being like, well, Molly, of course, was like primed to be a mom.
Right.
Because, what does he say? Because when we had her little brothers, she was like at the age where you would help your mom.
Right.
I was like,
I would think most girls would help. That's like their what am I looking for? It's
like within the nature.
in their body, in the nature that they do that kind of thing.
For a lot of
girls. Boys too, but like for girls, I think it's more so. Like they're into that, taking care of, changing diapers, playing with them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I just thought that was a really interesting, like, observation.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, she wanted to be a nanny because she helped with her brothers.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and you also find out from Molly that she had suffered from, like, she had had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
In her previous relationship.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, again, okay.
Right.
Like,
okay.
I don't understand how this relates, but okay.
Yeah.
And so then she gets there and like the kids really love her. Everything's going well.
Yeah. And we find out from a friend, I don't remember who, that she was actually childhood friends with Max. Right?
No, she lied.
Oh, she lied about that.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
We don't have to talk about that now, but
That's
like
the next thing on my list. Well, it says hires an au pair, and then the next thing on my list says that.
So.
But I guess Max is in Ireland, so I don't know how they would meet.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember I wrote that down.
The kids kind of, I think Sarah starts calling her mom.
Yeah. Because
she's like 2 when her mom passes away. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't know any better. And they establish a relation. Well, Molly and Jason enter a relationship outside of her being an au pair. Mm-hmm. But Jason had expressed to her, like, hey, we need to pump the brakes on this. Like, I'm not really ready. His family talks about how he's, like, smiling again and he's happy. And, like, that Molly has brought some joy back to him, which, again, sounds great.
Yeah.
She really takes ownership of the kids and, like, really steps in.
Really steps in.
Whether or not that was welcome, I'm not entirely sure in the beginning. Mm-hmm. She's having them call her mom.
Yeah.
She's wanting to, like, adopt them.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they get married.
Yeah.
Well, they get engaged. Mm-hmm. And then they get married. And all of this is still in Ireland.
Yeah.
And then they decide to move to North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I remember the kids are talking and they're like, yeah, when we moved to North Carolina, I thought the house was a mansion. Mm-hmm. And I was like so happy.
Yeah. That was cute.
Yeah, it was like a really sweet comment.
Yeah.
And so then they're getting married.
Yeah.
And her man, her maid of honor at the wedding is like getting ready to do her speech and is talking to Jason's sister and is like, hey, like, I'm so nervous about my speech. Can I practice it with you or something? Yeah. And so she's reading her speech and she's like mentioning, you know, like in those speeches, you're like, I remember when you told me, like, your love story is so da da da. Yeah. And she's saying that she tells this story about how Molly is like, was childhood friends with Mags. Yeah. And that's how she met Jason. Yeah. To like say it was serendipitous. And Jason's sister is like, what are you talking about? She was the nanny. Yeah. And her friend's like, what? Yeah. And then we hear a few other people who tell some some stories about her telling lies.
Yeah.
Where she, at like a book club, she told the whole book club that she, like, in tears about this dramatic, like, story of delivering Sarah.
Yeah. Which is not her biological daughter.
And people there knew that she had not had Sarah.
Yeah.
Wild.
Weird.
That is so weird. There was another one too, and now I can't think of it.
I can't think of it either. But yes,
there was another example of like her telling that story. But then other people are coming out and they're like, yeah, she used to like make up these stories kind of all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
And we see like the cops are like, well, she's not credible now, so we can't believe a word she says. She's a liar.
I mean, I think that's true.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Lies that people know are not true, and she's just telling them. So, yeah.
Oh, you know what we've completely missed talking about?
Oh, she told a story of her college roommate died of cancer.
That was one too. And having a sibling who passed away, like a sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, again, not true.
Not true.
So I'm like, why are you telling these stories to get, like, sympathy? It's very strange.
Very.
But something we didn't talk about is we see a lot of footage of the kids being questioned.
Yes.
Because the police are like, hey, we need to question these kids with someone who can, like, who knows how to talk to kids.
Yeah.
And so they take them to this, like, place.
Yeah.
Where, like a child psychologist is asking them questions. And I was watching this and I'm thinking, like, this is a very unnatural way for a 10-year-old to speak.
I was like, he's very intelligent. But then I'm like, no, he doesn't speak like that.
And then immediately as I thought that, the police said that. Yeah. They were like, we watched this and everything seemed very rehearsed.
Oh, yeah.
And every answer, the kids, they would be like, the person would be like, oh, yeah. And like, who told you that? Mm-hmm. My mom told me to say that. Yeah. My mom told me to say that. My mom told me to say that. Mm-hmm. So it was very clear that she was coaching them.
Yeah.
And we just skipped over that.
Yeah.
And the way, like, he so matter-of-factly talked about his dad dying was alarming. Mm-hmm. I'm like, presumably he wasn't in the room. Yeah. He wasn't in the room, actually. Right. The Jack is who I'm talking about. Yeah. And he knew details. Yeah. He's like, yeah, my dad hit him with a baseball bat, and then my mom picked up a cinder block and started beating his head. Yeah. And he died. Yeah. And I'm like...
So matter of fact.
But also, why would you tell him that? Right. Like...
They were asleep in their bedrooms when this happened.
Yeah. Well, what was the point of telling him? Yeah. Anyway, I got sidetracked with that because it popped into my brain. So back to her being a liar. So we hear about her being a liar and making up those stories. Mm-hmm. And then...
They went back, like, we're seeing Molly and the dad at the police station again.
I think that's right. Yeah. So the police are basically like, if they're lying, if she's willing, like, able to lie about these things, like, how do we believe this? Like you were saying, she loses all of her credibility. Yeah. And so then at the police station, they're questioning, like, more and more, and
Molly and the dad said that what's his name, Jason, was really drunk that night.
They did,
and they thought
he was so belligerent.
And then they also thought that maybe he had taken or was given without his notice that one of Molly's sleeping pills. So maybe that's like why he wasn't acting like he usually does. Slow movements.
Yeah, so the police check his blood alcohol percentage, and it's like 0.02, which is nothing. Yeah. But they do find that there's like trazodone in his system, so that could have been it. Yeah. But then they also discussed the autopsy results, and this prosecutor is like crying. Yeah. He's like, it's the most gruesome crime scene photos I've ever seen. Yeah. And I remember they mentioned that the forensic, what's that person called?
Pathologist?
Is that what they're called?
I don't
Like
know.
the autopsy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why can't I think of that?
I don't know.
Anyways, the person who does the autopsy, why can't I think of it right now?
No, I can't think of it.
They could not count how many like strikes there were, how many times blows to the head he received, because so many of them overlapped.
Yeah.
And that again is like, you have the right to protect yourself, but you don't have the right to kill someone.
Overkill someone.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they actually also say that like his skull fell, like a portion of his skull just fell out onto the table. Ugh. That's how badly he was beaten.
Yeah.
Also very weird that you keep a cinder block in your bedroom. I know she had that like excuse that she was painting them with the kids. Mm-hmm. But I'm like,
why would you keep it in your bedroom? Like, that would be a downstairs thing, I think. Like, the kitchen, because it was raining, so they had to keep the rocks dry to be able to paint on them. I would think that would be downstairs.
Yeah.
You know, on the kitchen table or something.
Yeah.
Not up in her bedroom.
On your nightstand.
Yeah. Totally random. And she had gone to an attorney and asked them, if we get divorced, would I be able to get the kids? And he said, you might, but he's like, if you adopt them, they'll probably go to you.
That was the other thing. So she really wanted to adopt these kids.
Yeah.
And he didn't want her to.
No.
Obviously, we don't know the reason why he didn't want her to. And so even the dad was like, we would ask Jason, like, what's the status of the adoption? And he always like pushed it.
Yeah.
And I think that really pissed her off.
Mm-hmm. Probably. Yeah. She really wanted those kids. Yeah. And then we meet, and I was going to say, what's the dad's name? Tom. And his wife put out something to adopt the children within 48 hours. And they're not even their biological grandkids. So that was kind of scary.
Yeah.
So Tom moves back to Ireland with the kids. What?
Tom doesn't move to Ireland. Tom's
Jason.
not from Ireland.
Jason.
Jason's dead.
Jason's dead.
Tracy.
Okay. I was like trying to figure this out. That's his sister?
Yes.
Yeah. That's right.
There's
too many names.
You need a board.
I do. But they moved back to Ireland.
Yeah. So his biological family gets custody of the kids.
Because he had a will that said he wants them to go to the sister and the sister.
And Tom and Molly are being charged with murder.
Right.
We sort of glossed over that fact.
Yeah.
So they're getting charged with murder because the police are like, you're guilty.
Yeah.
And so part of like the conditions of them being granted any sort of like parole while waiting for trial or whatever are that she can't have any communication with the family.
Yeah.
The kids, and they have to like give over their passports and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So the kids go back to Ireland, and I guess the trial starts, and the kids start seeing something about the trial, or like
it's like a really big deal in their town.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of people protesting, and it's a huge, like, everybody knows about it.
In their town in Ireland.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
And so the kids see something about like what is being said about their dad. Mm-hmm. And basically they reach out and tell the prosecutor, like, we lied. Like, I was coached. I was 8. They're a little bit older now.
Yeah.
And they're like, I was coached and I said things that weren't true because I felt like I needed to.
Yeah.
I felt like I had already lost a mom. I just lost my dad, and I was afraid to lose my other parent, in air quotes.
Yeah.
And basically what happens is the prosecutor's office, I always forget if it's prosecutor or defendant. The prosecutor's office gets the footage of the kids' like testimony or whatever from that house that they were at, it becomes inadmissible in court.
Yeah.
So it cannot be used as evidence.
Right.
Which I think, I have a lot of thoughts, actually.
Yeah.
So the trial goes on, and both Molly and her dad get convicted of second-degree murder.
Yeah.
And 20 years in prison.
Yeah.
And then they're in prison.
In prison, yeah.
And you're like, okay, great, that's the end.
Right.
And it's like, da-na-na. Now it's time to hear Molly's story.
Yeah. So Molly's attorneys figure out that the kids that were interviewed at that special house that wasn't their first interview. They interviewed with police first.
A few days prior to this incident, right?
Yeah.
Wait.
No. Right after.
Oh, okay.
It was like the day after they were interviewed and their conflicting reports again.
Okay.
So that was like, okay, we're going to present that to the judge and see what else he can like come up with. So they wanted to get a second trial.
Nah.
Yeah. That was one reason.
Yeah. Okay. So then they start doing the appeal process.
Yeah.
And part of what they want in the appeal is they want to be able to include the full the children's full testimony in the appeal process.
Yeah.
Because she's adamant that it was self-defense or protecting herself or whatever.
Yeah.
And that Jason was abusive and narcissistic and like all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out though, like we find out that she had contacted a lawyer I can't remember if she said it was a lawyer or someone she knew on like pretty much like, if we get divorced, how do I make it so I get custody?
Right.
And they were like, well, you need to prove this stuff.
Yeah.
So she had put these microphones, little hidden microphones. She bugged her own house.
And Jason's car.
To be able to, with voice activated microphones, to be able to capture all these incidents. So we hear a few different things where like out of context, he doesn't sound great.
Right. He doesn't.
But we're hearing a snip, right?
Yeah.
It's not a full picture.
No.
We're not knowing what happened before Jason starts talking.
Right.
And Jason is unaware that these are in the house. Mm-hmm. So she's getting to control the whole narrative.
Yeah.
You know, so she can egg Jason on.
Yeah.
And then just go, yeah, Jay. Like, okay. Like, really manipulate.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, wow, like, I'm not sure how I feel about this anymore. Yeah. But then I'm like, no, this is like, she's manipulating the fuck out of this.
Yeah.
And so the prosecutor's like, she wanted to divorce him and she had a plan in place.
Yeah.
Because you do not start recording interactions.
Right.
Without someone else's knowledge, unless you are setting a fucking trap.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that, but that's like paraphrased, basically.
It's true.
And it's true.
Yeah.
And I guess Jack says that he had found one of the microphones in Jason's car and showed him, and Jason was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And we also find out that Jason had been talking to family and like some other people about getting a divorce, and like even to the kids, like, how would you feel about moving back to Ireland? And they're like, with Mom, and he's like, no.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So Jason's like wanting to leave.
Yeah.
So the marriage is crumbling, is the moral of this story.
Yeah. And the her parents had told the kids have a safe word.
Yes.
So like if they were on the phone and something was happening, they would say their safe word so that they could know that they were in an argument.
The grandma, yeah.
The grandma.
And like she wrote her phone number on the bottom of like the trinkets in their room so they knew to call her. I'm like, this feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
This feels weird. Because why would you like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It very much felt like she was trying to just like steal his kids.
Yeah.
And then we also find out that they had been at like a friend's party before the night or the 2 days before the death.
Yeah.
And like she was belittling him and like
Telling him he was staying fat.
verbally abusing him in
Yeah.
front of their friends to the point where he like left early, but like called him fat and was like, I bet you're so fat because I bet like your twin died because you ate them.
Yeah.
And like weird, mean shit.
Mean. Yes.
Mean shit. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also, didn't the police, am I making this up? Didn't the police or CPS or someone get called like two or 3 days before and like talk to the kids? I thought her lawyer mentioned that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Before the incident.
Right.
And then the incident happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically her lawyer's like, her defense lawyer's like, okay, we need to be able to like have an appeal where we can use that information.
Yeah.
And I'm like playing it in my head.
Yeah.
And then we hear from like this guy who's the the domestic violence specialist.
Yes.
Who's like analyzing things.
Mm-hmm.
And he says a quote that I have a real problem with. And this is why. Do you know what I'm thinking?
No.
He says, just because Molly lied about a few things doesn't mean she can't also be a victim of domestic violence.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I have some issues with that because it means she has no credibility.
Right.
Like, you don't get to lie about, it's not like she lied about buying apples or having a pair of Crocs or like
spending too much money.
Yeah, like these little minuscule things. Mm-hmm. She lied about giving birth to one of his biological children.
Oh my God.
She lied about how she met him to her friends.
Yeah.
She lied about someone dies, like knowing people who had died. Like she lied about major shit.
Major shit, yeah.
That is not normal stuff to like lie about. I mean, it's not normal to lie in my opinion.
Right.
But like you can think things are more reasonable,
right.
you know? Like, no, I didn't eat Taco Bell on the way home from work.
Right.
Like that, whatever.
It's not going to hurt someone.
Correct. But like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
She lied about really major things.
Yeah. So 3 years after Jason's death, they go to the Court of Appeals and they won. And the judge ruled Jason was the aggressor during that night because the cops called her back or went to the station and she had bruises on her neck.
I didn't see the bruise.
I didn't see any bruise, but this was not after this fight, but like previously, in like fights previously she had. And then he said there was a nail mark because he was holding on to her so tightly or something like that. I don't know. It didn't look that bad.
We're forgetting something.
What?
We're forgetting that Mag's dad. Tom says that Mag's dad said that he thought that Jason killed his daughter.
Yeah.
And then he writes like a sworn testimony where he's like, I've never had a conversation with this man about my daughter ever.
Yeah.
And then also the whole like they try to her lawyers try to say that like he killed her. Mm-hmm. They like turned this into this whole thing that she didn't die of an asthma attack. Actually, he strangled her. Yeah. And he was like such an aggressive, horrible person behind the scenes. Yeah. But then there was some friend or family member who was at the house the night she died and watched her die too. Mm-hmm. And was like, I wish they would have called me to the States to testify. Yeah. It was just like character assassination of a dead man.
Yeah. It was weird.
Felt really shitty.
And then they pled down to manslaughter after their second trial.
Yeah.
So that was like a lot less.
Yeah.
And they were sentenced to 51 to 74 months in jail. But I think they got released before that because of already time served.
Yeah.
and she has not had any contact with the kids.
Yeah, because the kids don't want to contact
No,
her at all.
they turned against her.
The kids basically, well, and they try to say that like the kids were brainwashed and
Yeah.
they were like being mind controlled and all these things. And
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you guys, I don't know. I feel like I can smell the bullshit from
Yeah.
a million miles away. And I'm like, the kids clearly like, I don't know. Again, it was like an hour and a half long video.
Yeah.
What do I know?
Yeah.
But the kids seemed very genuine. They even say like, we didn't really understand like what like true family was until we started living with our aunt.
Yeah.
Like until we started living with Tracy. And at first when they went to Tracy's, they were super shut down.
Yeah.
Because they had experienced so much trauma.
They experienced a bunch of trauma. I can't imagine.
But they said like seeing Tracy interact with like her kids and her husband showed them how manipulative and like awful Molly was to them. There was like one time when they I think Sarah had said she wanted to like play soccer or something because her dad was the coach. And Molly turned around and was like, why do you always want to spend time with your dad? It's like, you don't even love me.
Do you not love me?
Yeah, do you not love me?
Yeah. That's, no. Yeah. And I guess she didn't. Because they spent a lot of time together, it seems like.
Well, and it was like they just were able to step out of it and see how she had manipulated them into like loving her, quote unquote. This is a pretty crazy one.
Yeah, it was.
That's it.
That's it. All right. We'll see you when we see you.
Who knows when that'll be? You're going on vacation for like a million years.
No, 10 days, I think. Not a million years. It's about 10 days. So we're going to miss a few, but you're used to it, so.
What else is new?
What else is new? See ya.
Bye.